Welcome back to the 2020 Author Fair, brought to you by Rochester Hills Public Library and Rochester Writers. It's the second annual. My name is Michael Dwyer, and joining us for this segment is author Angelique Clemens. Did I get that right?
That is correct.
That's
Hello.
a beautiful name, Angelique. And you have written a book called Can I Borrow Your Skin? And I have to tell you, we've done a lot of interviews today with horror writers, but it has nothing to do with borrowing your skin in that realm, does it?
It does not. I
Good.
love that. Great. It's a great segue, though. So, Can I Borrow Your Skin is about a woman who goes through her life adopting herself, literally putting on like an avatar of who she is expected to be, depending on who she's speaking with. And that's what the Can I Borrow Your Skin is about. So, it's about a woman who has to be one way around one group of friends, a different way around her family members, a different way at work, and different way at church. And so all these different versions of herself, she's constantly putting on this persona to fit in to a certain situation because she has yet to define who she is for herself and who she's going to be to the world.
And do you find that that is what most of us do through life, but some people manage that better or it troubles other people more?
I absolutely think it's something that most of us do. I think that most people at one point in time in their life or another struggle with self concept. They just don't know who they are deep down. And because of that, they find themselves losing themselves and slipping more easily into this avatar and just borrowing someone else's opinion of them and making that themselves.
And so, does your character find a way? And I don't want to give the ending out, but does she come to some positive outlook on finding herself?
So she absolutely does. And without giving too much away, the character Nicolette finds that as she continually loses herself because she's constantly borrowing the skin that people want her to adorn, that as she loses herself, she starts to dislike who she is. And so she goes on this self discovery and trying to find who she is so she can learn to love herself, because at the end of the day, until she learns who she is and learns to actually enjoy that person, she finds that she can't be actually happy in her life.
Oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, the self-discovery and finding out who you are is important to all of us. And some of us, as I said, do a better job of it. But
Absolutely.
I hadn't thought about what if you're not happy with who you find out who you are.
Right. And that's the troubling part. And that's the reason, one of the main reasons why I wrote Can I Borrow Your Skin? Though it is a fiction novel, I base a lot of my own personal experiences in this book. The main character, similar to myself, comes from an inner city. She goes off and does spectacular things in her education life, and she becomes a very well sought after professional woman. And she finds that as she was traveling from, like myself personally, I'm from the city of Detroit. For those of you who don't know the city of Detroit, I grew up in the 48205 zip code, which is probably one of the deadliest neighborhoods in the city of Detroit. And so I went from a neighborhood which was not always safe to attending prestigious universities like the University of Michigan and Harvard University. And so my main character struggles with being someone from an inner city, someone that people may discount, uh, may never understand the things that she had to go through as a kid and as a young adult, to someone who people only see the degrees and letters behind her name, and she struggles with that dichotomy of herself. And so in this process, she has to play a certain role around her friends from these prestigious universities and these very well-to-do places and in her workplace. And then she has all these friends she grew up with who may not have accomplished as much as she. And she's learning that, these people may resent who she became, though she feels she's still the same girl from the 48205. And so she really struggles with being herself in all these different situations and what truly herself is. And so, Can I Borrow Your Skin is my way of saying, you can be a lot of different things and you don't have to be put in a box. And you have to learn to be happy with that person, you not only where you came from, but what you developed into. And that's okay.
That's tough for I would imagine paralleling your life and what you've had to adapt to. Not everyone has those drastic changes or such a
Right.
diversity of skins that they have to put themselves in. So it might be more challenging for others than you might imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you look at people who they never, and even people who don't make all those giant changes and they never travel away from home, they never see anything different, they struggle with the what ifs. And so you kind of have a battle that you have to pick. You have to battle whether or not you've done so much change. Are you such a different person? Or you've done so little change, you know did you even grow? And so it doesn't matter if you've made a lot of change or a little change, there's struggles on each side of it. And that's where Can I Borrow Your Skin and the affirmation process can be very helpful to people.
Now, I'm sure you did a lot of research and inquired with other people that have gone through this metamorphosis throughout their life. Are there some that just couldn't make that change and maybe went back to the life they used to know because it was more comfortable in a way?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the most famous examples of that would probably be when you see certain uh, people who, like National Football League players, people in the NFL, who they grew up in, a gang laden environment, and they still, do a lot of, they throw up gang signs when they score a touchdown, and they do things of that nature because it's so second nature to them. That's the way they celebrate. That's all they've known. And they struggle with that, where they're now making millions and millions of dollars a game, but they're still that scared little kid that went to that gang for protection, and they don't know how to get out of it. There's absolutely examples of that.
Wow. And do you have any of those examples in the book? Does your character come across other people in her situation?
She absolutely comes across other people in her situation. I use the example of a person in the National Hockey League actually in the book. I also use the example of a Fortune 500 company person in the book who is stuck in his new definition of himself, to the point where he actually has a lot of self-hatred. And so that's another one of those examples in the book where he completely lost who he was to be who he is, and he learns and he hates himself for it. And so there's a couple different examples in the book where people who go through the affirmation process and find themselves and do okay, and then there's people who get stuck with who they were and people who get stuck to where they went. And so you have people in all different levels of defining themselves and learning to be who they are in their own skin.
So, what would you say is the grand takeaway of someone that is going through this? I would imagine we've talked about the people that revert back to who
Right.
they were, people that change and maybe don't like who they change. into, is there a balance that is an ultimate outcome that you've seen?
So I think that the balance comes from, and this is where the subtitle of my book comes into play, learning to be the fierce person you see in the mirror. You have to learn to get your definition of yourself. And that takes time and it's a process. But once you get that person, and it's a combination of, who your friends think you are, who your church family think you are, your family, who your work colleagues think you are, who all these different versions of yourself, and you take the core of who you truly are in those situations, and that's who you are. And once you find that person, and for me and for my character, the easiest way to do that was to use the mirror technique, to literally sit down with yourself, whether it was every day, once a week, once a month, and have a conversation with yourself and get to the core of who you are. And when you find that person and you can look at that person and you're happy, that's the goal. And so you're not playing your work life person, being stuck with just where you are now and discard everything you used to be. You're not the person stunted where you used to be. And you're not just one version of yourself. You're this magnificently complex individual. And you have to know all the different complexities of yourself and love that person.
Well, I agree completely. And there's a lot of coaching out there that talks about positive affirmations and how you can incorporate those into your life. And you've taken it really a step farther with the fact that you have this novel and you have a companion piece, a workbook, which is called The Guide to the Mirror. Could you talk about the affirmations and that companion piece?
Absolutely. So in the guide to the mirror, it's called the post read. And I'm going to read a little bit of that right now and to kind of walk people through it. And so it goes, be real with yourself. Let's be honest. Everyone has things they dislike about themselves. It is natural to be critical of oneself. However, disliking everything about yourself is just overly negative and can spiral one down a rabbit hole of self doubt and self hate. And there's an easy way to control the negative thoughts and to be constructive with self evaluation. An exercise that can combat that is to combat going down this rabbit hole, is to list the things you dislike about yourself. And when you're making this list, it's helpful that you limit it to things that are changeable and to only 10. Because if you're being self critical, you could think of a million things, but you can limit it to just 10 and make sure they're changeable. In this exercise, something like your height is being overly critical because you can't change your height. And so I actually leave space for people to write down the 10 things if they buy the book and not just get the ebook. And then the next step, for each of the things that you listed, note why you dislike it and be as factual and objective as possible. For example, if you note that you don't like your weight, that's great. But if you just write, I don't like that I'm fat, writing that you don't like that you're fat is not being critical. It's not objective. And it's not something that you can actually discuss with yourself. And do you dislike your body's shape? Or do you just dislike your weight? Or more likely, you don't like how your clothes fit. You may also ask yourself if you just dislike your body's tone. If you take the time to evaluate each of the things and be factual and objective in nature, each of the things that you say you don't like about yourself in the previous exercise, now spend some time in the mirror having a conversation with yourself about why you dislike it. And you take your time and be real with yourself, not critical. And so then it leaves space for you to actually write down why you dislike certain things and to make it objective and to make it factual. So, and then it goes into how you set goals about the thing you said you disliked and make that goal achievable if you're going to try to change it. And so through this post read, and I'm not going to go through all 6 or 7 pages of going through how you do the factual, objective definition of the things you dislike. But once you get them, then it tells you, okay, so if you dislike, for example, weight, you dislike your weight, and you're objective about it, and then you can make a goal. Say you're 180 pounds and you don't like it because your clothes don't fit well. Well, if you tone up your body and you lose 15 pounds, then your clothes will fit better. And so what the guide does is it allows you to find things that you dislike about yourself, really discover why you dislike them, and then work towards changing them. And then in the second part of this part of the guide, it actually has affirmations for you to use. You know, once you start talking about things you don't like, it's very easy to be like, okay, I don't like this. I don't want to look at myself in the mirror. But it actually makes you go a step further and actually stand in your mirror and talk to yourself. And so I want to go through one affirmation for people who dislike the way that they look. And it's a very nice exercise. And it starts off with breathing. So you stand in the mirror and you start by taking a deep breath. You breathe in through your nose slowly. The inhale should take at least 5 seconds. Count in your mind that you ensure that you take a long, deep breath in. And then you pause for 1 second. When you exhale, exhale slowly through your mouth. It may help to have your lips only slightly parted, and you breathe out for at least 5 seconds, and then you pause. Close your eyes and repeat the deep breath. Stand or sit up straight. Ensure that your back is fully erect, and take another deep breath. Relax your shoulders by arching them backwards. And by doing this, you're going to be contracting your rhomboid muscle, which is the muscles between your shoulder blades. And then take another deep breath. You're going to rotate your neck in a circular motion clockwise and then counterclockwise. And take another deep breath. Then look into the mirror. Deliberately look into your eyes and address yourself. And when you address yourself, you are going to address yourself about the goal that you're working on. So in this example, you're going to address yourself by name. I address myself by name and I talk about my goal. And so for this example, you can say, Angelique, you look nice today. Something factual, you've lost such amount of weight or you have not gained weight, which is an accomplishment in itself in this situation. And then you can talk about your clothes, the way your clothes are fitting, and you go through the affirmation. And the book actually has key phrases that you can do. And then it always tells you how to end your affirmation. But it goes through the breathing exercise, the affirmation, then there's another breathing exercise, and then you go about your day.
I think that's a fantastic approach, and it clearly makes you feel better about yourself. So, for example, I might say, Michael, you look great today, and your hair is growing back.
That's a good one.
And I say it enough that it has grown back, way, way back.
I love that.
So that's one of the things that I could list that I can't change about myself, that I've got to learn. That's just who I am.
Right. And you have to learn to accept yourself and love yourself for that.
And I have, by being able to tell jokes about it now.
Right.
Well, that's wonderful. So you've got the main book, which is a novel. It's got more elements than just the learning to live with in your own skin, correct?
Absolutely. So it is a novel, and like I said, it's a biographical fiction. So it follows a woman through her life, the event in her life that triggered her to realize that she didn't know who she was and she didn't like who she thought she was. is the passing of a loved one that she was very close to. And so it walks people through the growth process of dealing with loss and having your whole life, what you thought was the perfect life, ripped out from up under you. And so she goes through loss. She is a single woman trying to find love in the city. And so it has a lot of different aspects to it, though the overarching topic is about her going through all these different things that she's dealing with, changing careers, dealing with the loss of a loved one, trying to find someone to love her. She goes through all of that while also trying to find and love herself.
Well, I think it's a wonderful approach that you've taken to telling this story that it could benefit so many people that may just come off to many as a good read, a good story, and then they may discover within it that maybe they need a little work too, or they could benefit from some of the teachings, and you've got that workbook to go with it.
Yes.
And now, besides all of this, I hear you're working on a children's book.
I am. So I have a children's book that's almost done, and it's called Project AIL. And AIL stands for Aunts in Love. And this one is 100% factual. It's based on my actual life. I have, nieces and nephews who I adore. My husband and I are not blessed with children, but I have also a lot of kids in my life who call me auntie, though I am not their biological aunt. And this story is based on a true story event of one of my play nieces, if you will, a young lady who's called Amelia in the book. It's not her real name, but she was doing a family tree project for school in first grade. And she was talking with her parents, and they were going through the family tree. And she asked, well, but Angelique, you guys didn't mention her. Whose sister is she? Is she your sister, mom, or she your sister, dad? And they both kind of laughed and explained that I'm both of their sister. And, after learning about how family trees work, she goes, well, that's not possible. And so they explained to her that I've been both of their best friends for over 20 years. And I introduced the parents together. And that's why the kids call me auntie. And so she listened intently. And when she actually finished her family tree project for school and she was presenting it, she went through her biological family members, and then she explained that she also has an auntie in love. And that was me. And she explained how I'm her mom's sister and her dad's sister because I love them both very much. And because of my love for them, I introduced them and they have the kids. And though I am not their biological family, I am still her auntie and very much part of her family tree. And so she's truly right in the middle of the family tree, connected to everybody. And so the book recalls that story and talks about, families who you love, not always who you are related to.
I love your energy and your passion, and your smile shines through with your voice. You've been able to take these life experiences and really turn them into um, not only entertainment, but a learning experience for readers. Why don't we close up with you telling the audience where they can go to find out more about you and maybe purchase your books?
Absolutely. So the easiest way to find out about me is on my website, which is angeliqueclemens.com. Uh, I'm so used to spelling my name. I don't know if this is going to be a video or not, or just if you're just going to be listening to it. So I'm going to spell it because I'm used to doing it.
Go right ahead.
Angelique is Angelique. Clemens is CLEMENS.com. And from there, there are links to buy my book from my website, or there's also links there to get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, Nook, as well as Kindle.
Well, that's wonderful. Angelique Clemens, thank you so much for joining us today for the 2020 Virtual Authors Fair. This is our second annual, and blessings to you. And I hope to hear more about more future books from you.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me.
And we'll be back with more authors